Yeah, but I didn't have it.
First of all, opportunity for public comment. Anyone want to wade in on planning board issues in general or public comments? Anyone?
Well, probably one song that relates to something that we thought was going to be on the agenda.
Two North Avenue.
True North, okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm coming into this, I guess, quite a bit late, but in the process, because as part of the flu shot, I got flu, I missed some of the notes. But perhaps you can explain, I understand that daycares are permitted in residential districts, but can you explain why something which I'm hearing about the size of this can be permitted in a residential district?
This is a Dover Amendment use.
This is what?
Dover Amendment use.
This is a
Educational. So it means that we have limited site plan review. We can only look at certain specific things related to that, and what we need to look at is the impacts of the population of the school that they're proposing. So my understanding is that one of the reasons why the hearing is being continued is because we're looking for specifically the traffic impacts that would be generated by the additional attendees at the daycare center, and we've asked the applicant to give us traffic projections, and apparently the applicant is still working on those. So without that information, we can't take it the next step farther. So we're waiting for that information, and then we'll have the hearing. But we can look at lighting, we can look at utilities like drainage, we can look at, my understanding is we can look at planting as long as it's reasonable. We can look at traffic impacts, but I don't think we can place a limit on the number of occupants. Susan, is that your understanding too? Yeah.
So do Dover Amendment things, I mean, once a structure is built in a residential district, now, I mean, you know me well enough to know, I mean, I should say I'm Ms. Saunders from Palace Road. Looking at 30 years down the road, I can look back at least 50. Suppose the demographics are such that you no longer are doing, you no longer have such a need for a preschool educational thing. And this is a residential lot. Is there any protection for having it go back to actually being a residential lot?
It could go back to, it's in a residential zone, so that would be permitted as in the zone. A residence would be permitted, single-family residence.
So you have no control over the kind of structure, whether it could be then easily modified back into a residence?
No, because the daycare center would be required to provide a facility which was in compliance with state regulations concerning that kind of facility. So convertibility into some other use is not typically something that we would have a way to require. And in any case, the facility that they're proposing would be difficult to convert to a residence, so it would have to be a replacement, I would imagine. I think the structure that's there now was at one point a residence. It looks like a residence.
Yes.
But
I've got a question on it. Jim adds, I'm in a butter, right to the west of them. when we did the site walk, they were talking about raising up the grade 2 feet in the back. Where does all that water go? Right now, it drains out right to Keene Fire and Safety, right in that corner, and that's right, into her property.
Goes right into my property,
And
1,500 gallons a day.
all that water has to drain somewhere if they pick that grade up 2 feet.
Right.
The other issue is, they allowed, on my side, they allowed a 2-foot strip for screenage plantings. Not much you can put in 2 feet.
Well, now we're getting into the specifics of the application, which we can't really talk about without the applicant being here. In other words, that question is a perfectly legitimate question, and I would suggest that we'll be continuing the hearing tonight to a specific date, and so we're not ending anything tonight. So come back with that question on the night that we will continue the hearing to.
I thought it was scheduled for tonight.
It was, but they're not ready, so we're going to have to continue it. And we'll give you the date that we're going to continue it to. We have to open the hearing and then continue it to a date. And then come back with that question, because it's a legitimate question. And by the way, there are 2 hearings scheduled. One is for the application of the use as a daycare center, and the other one is for earth movement. And they're importing a lot of material. So that is a permit, and we could discuss the impacts of the material they're bringing in, and we intend to do so at that hearing. And that's when we're going to get into issues of water runoff and how they're changing the topography and all those sorts of questions. So,
and if I could add, at the last meeting, we did ask them to look at the grade at the property relative to your property, and perhaps, I don't know if you're the other property behind, to kind of look at the big picture and see how the adjacent properties relate, because we want to make sure that everything isn't going into your property.
yeah, for sure.
Yep, well, we're guessing if it's higher than our properties, it has to come down into our properties unless they do some kind of a perimeter drain system around it and pump out to the street.
Well, remember, we have a consultant who's a civil engineer, so we look to him for expert advice on those issues, and he's the town's expert, not the applicant's.
Is it David? Is that it?
Yes, David Connolly. So again, he'll be looking at the topographical changes. He'll be looking at how they're going to handle the stormwater runoff, all those kinds of questions.
That would be like, I have a concern with some ledge back in.
That's my son-in-law.
Okay, some ledge, and I asked the applicant, he says that's not, there's some big rocks there. They said when they did some test borings, they said there was no ledge. All right, but if there's ledge, there's going to be runoff.
Right. Again, we really can't say anything with the applicant not being here, so that's again a legitimate question. Let's ask it when we open the hearing, when they are available.
Okay. So it's going to be postponed tonight.
It has to be, because they don't have the traffic information yet, and that's a critical piece. It's North Avenue.
I tried to get out at 9 this morning. I volunteer at the town hall. At least 15 minutes, so somebody said, go ahead.
Yeah, no, we all know.
Thank you, thank you.
I know
That's
all
what
about
you say.
it.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
You know, it's awful. Traffic
You know,
at 117 at certain hours.
We're going to have questions. Are they going to be backing up onto Route 117? Are they going to be increasing the congestion on that road? You know, what about when they pick the kids up? You know, what times
135
of the day?
children, I know.
Yeah.
And 30 staff. That's
There's
a lot of
actually-
people.
there's actually two different, they're doing an 8,500 square foot school.
Something like that.
Yeah. They have another one, like a step down from that. I think it was a couple of thousand square feet less, which would probably be more appropriate for the lot.
Yeah, that makes
That's-
sense. Yeah.
It's
that makes
a
sense.
lot of,
That makes sense. Yeah.
Let's talk about it when we
Okay.
get some information.
Okay.
We'll write out all our questions.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a very
Okay.
good idea.
All right, we will.
I mean, every one of those questions, perfectly legitimate,
Okay.
but this isn't the time to ask them.
Okay. Oh, we didn't realize that.
No, well, we didn't either. I mean, we thought they'd have the information by tonight, but I
It's
guess
okay.
not.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, anybody else want to make a public comment? No? Good. Town planner updates. The update is that, for the time being, following Joe Layden's resignation, Susan Haber has agreed to fill in. Thank you, there is a God. And so we're all glad about that.
Yeah.
So if there are any questions, Susan's here on Mondays,
Okay.
and she's in the planner's
She'll be
office.
doing 40 hours of work in 8 hours, I'm assuming. For a very short time, but thank you.